Guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Veronica. Thank you so much for clicking the link to watch today's video. Without further ado, let's get started. First off, happy Black History Month. I feel like I have not said that yet, and my videos are a little bit delayed, but it is officially Black History Month now, and wow, I mean, I'm making another being Black in the military video, and sometimes I cringe a little bit at making these because, I don't know, I just feel like I'm going to be judged or people comment. Even the Christian in the military video, I still get daily comments on that video, and that video is like 2 or 3 years old. Like, you guys go ham on my military videos, especially with taboo topics, but I can't sit here and be Black in the military and not say anything. So I feel like we're just going to continue this series where every year I do a being Black in the military video because I feel like it's tradition at this point. And with having more experience under my belt, it's definitely putting in perspective, and being older in the military, being older in general, being more aware of my Blackness, my power. I think it's so important to speak on it, because who knows who could be watching or who this video could be reaching, and if I can make a difference, that's the most important thing. I think for me, especially my first assignment where I experienced, racism, and being a Black female second lieutenant, I wasn't well liked with a certain position that I held. And that really affected me mentally, because for the first time I felt really defeated. I felt that I didn't really have any help to kind of navigate that. And in hindsight, looking in, I wish I had a mentor at that time, but I was brand new. It was my first job, and having people who work underneath you who target those aspects about you is very hard. And it's easy to say, like, oh, go to EO, or oh, file a complaint, but it's easy to say it, but it's not easy to do. Even if it's, let's say it's your commander or your flight commander, or someone who is supervising you is racist, or pressuring you, or you making microaggressions or saying certain statements they shouldn't be saying. It's a lot. It's hard to do it. So I know in my other video I said, make sure you report them to EO, but I know it's really hard to do. But just experiencing that, I feel like I can kind of talk a little bit about it now. I was one of the only, I think we had like 2, maybe 3 females in our entire flight, and the rest were males. And it was very hard. I think it's hard too when in their defense, they went without having a flight commander or any supervision for 6 months. So they were kind of just doing their own thing. And then when I got there, I was told to do certain things, clean certain things up, and certain things needed attention, which is very standard when you're coming in as an officer or you're serving in a senior role. When you get there, usually you'll have a debrief, and they'll kind of tell you maybe some areas they want you to focus on, and that was one of the areas. And so coming in and being green and being by the book, and that's what the standard was. And for a lot of the time, for me, I felt like I was being too hard on them. When I had to write someone up and deliver paperwork, I literally, like, in my office, I teared up by myself before I had to do it because I didn't want to do it. And the first paperwork I gave, he happened to be another brother. He was a fellow Black airman, and he did a lot of things that he shouldn't have done. Prior to me even getting there, he had already received multiple infractions and written write-ups. But it just felt so, I felt, not that, there's like a sense of community if you're not Black, there's like a sense of community, right? And we look out for each other because we know how hard the system works against us. not saying we excuse things, because absolutely, you know, a standard is a standard, but to have that be my first experience was very detrimental to me, even though he hated my guts. And I think he was used to being kind of in charge before I got there and kind of running and doing whatever he wanted, and that wasn't happening. And so it was just really hard to deal with. And then on top of that, you know, sitting there and being younger than everyone, I think that played a huge role. And just dealing with the weight of expectations of being a Black female officer, and also delivering paperwork and upholding your commanders, it carries so much weight. You feel the pressure. I feel the pressure still to be near perfect. And it's crazy because I see peers who are in my same corps not doing nearly as much work as I did, not, you know, working so many hours, working, you know, sun up to sundown. They're leaving and going home to their families. And now I have a family, and I realize I'm going to go home to my family. That's going to be a priority for me. But just being that as my first assignment and pouring so much in, I wish I could tell myself, and I wish I could go back and watch over myself and say, hey, you need to stop. You know, you need to allow leadership and the commanders who wear the big bucks on their collars to handle this now. You need to step back. But I felt like it was my sense of duty, because I did have the top level commanders talking and meeting with me saying they wanted certain problems fixed. And so I tried my best. I basically handled the situation as best as any person could have. And the validation came from the commanders as they were leaving, and the senior NCOs as they were leaving, telling me that I was doing a good job and I was a stand-up officer, which is why I landed the other jobs that I landed, but at the detriment of myself. So being a Black female officer a lot of the times means you're being an officer, period, or in a senior NCO position, or NCO in a leadership position, period, no matter what rank you are, is lonely. Okay. But being a Black female officer is even lonelier. And being a young person, they know you're a butter bar. You're like fresh meat in the water for some sharks. Okay. It was crazy, the amount. It wasn't hazing, because they didn't haze me. They didn't make my life easier either. And I'm sure there are many reasons where, you know, when you come in, just to their defense again, and you don't have leadership and all of a sudden you have it, it's hard. That's a hard transition. There was stuff that went on before me that I shouldn't have even had to deal with, but the fact of the matter is you do. Because the military is like a revolving door. You have people leaving and coming, going and coming constantly. So you're going to have to clean up messes. You're going to have to start over from scratch, or carry on, or deal with things. Or sometimes the biggest thing that I've learned too is sometimes you have to just let things go. You have to let the train run off the tracks sometimes, because you can't do it at the detriment of yourself, or if it's killing morale. Sometimes you just have to take a step back and kind of let it run its course. Again, like I was saying, being a Black female officer is so hard, and being a Black officer is so hard, just because it's a well-known fact, at least amongst us, that we're working harder than my peers. All my friends who happen to be fellow Black officers, top-notch people, killing it in the game. I mean, working from sun up to sundown, submitting reports, doing briefs. I mean, just chef's kiss, like a perfect employee, and still didn't get as much recognition. Still, you know, sometimes we're held to even higher standards or impossible standards than our counterparts who just happen to be white or different shades. They're not people of color, or they're not Black. And that's just a fact. You know, I think now, especially, I can only speak for the Air Force, we're making room. We're seeing more leaders in higher level positions, more leaders, Black leaders in senior O positions, and it's really senior NCO positions, and it's really helping. But it's a system that has been broken. So not necessarily always the people, but more or less the system. And when you have such a large infrastructure and a system, I think people go into it now and you would think like, well, we just had, you know, basically a reawakening of our Blackness and things that are broken, and especially with police brutality and everything that has gone on, things should just be like this, but it's not. Our infrastructure is really made up, has usually historically been made up of white men. And so when you stick different, you know, drops of people in there, sometimes it's easier to conform to the system. And I'm here to say that if you have, especially being a person of color or Black person, if you have ever at any point in time conformed to the system, it's okay. You have to take that burden off, because you can't carry every single thing, and we do that a lot. And so I think, you know, as growing as an officer and knowing and being aware of my Blackness and what that means to me, and also serving, and that you have to see my Blackness to see me, is very important as I take on future leadership roles. I think a lot of the times we're scared to say the word Black, and we're scared to, like, you know, make people feel uncomfortable, but I think we need to do that. I know we need to do that. And so as I go on and as I talk about things, you know, I've never been scared to talk about it. I think I was a little shy with my first experience because of there was already issues working against me, but I just need to be bold in my power and bold in being Black, and there's nothing wrong. Like, I can't change that. I don't want to change it, but that's who I am. I was asked the other day how it was, and I think the biggest hurt for me is the environments that we're placed in. So I was placed in Montana, right? And, you know, the Ku Klux Klan headquarters are there, and I couldn't find a place to get my hair done. It was cold. It was kind of depressing. It wasn't an environment where Black people normally are, to be honest. And then I come to Chocolate City, DC, and I have my commanders sending out constant emails about diversity and inclusion, people of color. There's constant events, and we love Black people, we love community, we thrive in it. And unfortunately with the military, not every assignment is going to have a huge community. I was very fortunate where, thank God that God orchestrated all of the officers he did at the same time to be there in the med group, and it was amazing. We formed such a great support system and a great community. But it makes me wonder, makes me question, should we be looking into studies? Should we be assigning people of color to certain desolate locations where we know there's strong bouts of racism, they can't get their hair done, there's no community? Are we aiding in their depressive states? And I know it's not realistic, because we're here to do a mission. Everyone puts on that uniform and we're supposed to be the same people, right? And we can't always base things off of, well, is there a good enough hairstylist for her to be PCS or assigned there? But I think that's something that I wish the military did consider. Maybe evaluate mental health wise. If this person is already struggling mentally, especially with racial identity or experiencing certain things, should we be sending them to those locations? Now me, I can handle it. I did one, hopefully one and done, but I did it and I survived it, and I met some of the best people and our godparents, you know. However, I think we really need to look at the connection there. So that's just something I'm throwing out there. But I think going into the military and being a Black leader is going to be a challenge no matter what. I think hopefully, I know actually as time progresses, it will get easier. There will be more support systems. But it's hard. The pressure is on. And so I would be remiss to sit here and say like, oh my gosh, it's so easy now. I'm supported. There is a diversity awakening, and they have been sending out emails and surveys constantly, not just for Black people, but for Hispanic, I believe, and Asian, because I did see some polls going through, and they do have a whole diversity and inclusion office division now that has actually been created to support diversity and inclusion. So they are walking the walk. So we're just waiting on the talk, or they're talking the talk. I think we're still waiting on the walking the walk to come through. We also need to be realistic. For a long time, and I think my dad even said this too, and I totally agree with him. We can't force people or companies or leaders to apologize or send out emails that they don't agree with. I can tell the difference between someone who's like, okay, checking the box, I wrote this email, let me push send, or she wrote this email for me, let me push send, versus someone who really is trying to understand and be an ally for whatever group they're trying to support. And the thing is, we can't, even though I want to sometimes and say like, you need to address this, I have learned to not force people to address things, not force people to apologize. Let them be who they are. And whatever they show you, believe them. Do I believe people can change and systems can change? Yes. But it's going to be very complex, a lot more complex than, what has been going on. So anyways, I don't want to ramble. That is my thoughts for being a black female officer in the military. This is kind of like part 2, part 3. I don't know. I've filmed a lot of videos. But the series continues next year. I don't like to make too many because I feel like sometimes I inundate it. So I like to kind of, but it feels good to be back. Feels good to have my makeup on and just feel like Veronica again. So give this video a thumbs up, hit subscribe. Come on, you guys. I'm trying to get to 10,000 subscribers and I feel like I should have been there already, but it's my fault. But go ahead, tell your friends, share it, like it, comment, and also follow me on Instagram because I'm very active on there. I post all the time, stories, reels, and also I have TikTok, which is the same handle as everything else. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.